The murder of Mindi Kassotis is a story of deceit, obsession, and darkness hiding behind ordinary appearances. It is a tale that shocks not only for the crime itself, but for the bizarre life that led up to it. Mindi, a young woman described by friends and family as intelligent, vibrant, and full of promise, lived a life that seemed normal on the surface. Yet beneath that surface was a complex web of secrets, lies, and dangerous relationships that ultimately culminated in her untimely death. Mindi's story begins with her social life and relationships. She was known to be friendly and outgoing, but she also kept certain people at a distance. Over time, a pattern emerged where she became involved with individuals who were manipulative and controlling. Friends noticed that she was sometimes anxious, that she would avoid certain topics, and that she seemed to carry a weight that was invisible to everyone around her. These small clues, while easily overlooked, hinted at the tension that was quietly building in her life. The first shocking element of Mindi's story is her connection to a man whose obsession would ultimately play a role in her death. This man, whose identity was later revealed during investigations, appeared charming and attentive at first. However, his true nature was far more sinister. He monitored Mindi's activities, isolated her from people who could intervene, and created an environment of fear and control. What seemed like affection to outsiders was in reality manipulation and psychological domination. Mindi's family was unaware of the extent of this relationship. They trusted that she could handle her social interactions and believed in her ability to navigate complex situations. But as the relationship intensified, the psychological toll became apparent. Mindi began to withdraw from activities she once enjoyed. Her demeanor changed, and those closest to her sensed a growing unease. Unfortunately, no one could foresee how this relationship would spiral into a violent tragedy. The events leading up to Mindi's murder are both bizarre and tragic. She began to receive strange messages and unexplained visits, creating fear that she shared with almost no one. These incidents, combined with the controlling behavior of the man she was involved with, created a situation where she felt trapped. Mindi's private life was filled with secrets, but the danger was no longer abstract. It was tangible, and it was escalating. Then came the night that would change everything. The discovery of Mindi's body shocked the community. The circumstances were gruesome, the scene chaotic and unsettling. Investigators described the scene as both tragic and mysterious, pointing to a life filled with hidden turmoil and dangerous connections. It became clear that the murder was not random, but the result of a series of manipulations, lies, and obsessions that had escalated over time. Evidence from the investigation revealed unsettling details about Mindi's life before her death. Police discovered that she had been living with secrets that only a few people knew. She had confided in some friends about feeling unsafe, about being manipulated, but she had not fully disclosed the extent of her situation. These revelations painted a picture of a young woman caught between fear, trust, and the invisible control of someone she once thought she could rely on. The man involved in the case quickly became the primary suspect. His behavior before and after the murder drew attention from authorities and raised questions about his intentions. Friends described him as obsessive and unpredictable, someone who could be charming one moment and threatening the next. His psychological profile, as outlined by experts during the trial, revealed patterns of control, narcissism, and an alarming lack of empathy. These traits made it clear why Mindi felt trapped and why her life ended so tragically. One of the most bizarre aspects of the case is the series of lies that surrounded Mindi's social interactions. She was forced to navigate a world where appearances were misleading. Her relationships, her daily routines, and even her communications were monitored and manipulated. These lies created a complex environment where trust was nearly impossible, and every action had to be measured against the potential for escalation. The psychological burden of this life cannot be underestimated. As the investigation continued, authorities uncovered additional layers of deception. Mindi's interactions with others were scrutinized, revealing that her life was more complicated than anyone had imagined. There were hidden connections, undisclosed meetings, and secret communications that showed a young woman trying to assert independence in a dangerous world. This evidence became crucial in understanding the motive and planning behind her murder. The murder itself was executed with shocking precision. Investigators found that the act was premeditated, with steps taken to conceal the crime. This was not an impulsive act, but the result of a carefully orchestrated plan by someone who had controlled Mindi for months. The scene of the murder revealed both the brutality of the act and the meticulous planning that made it possible. The reality of the situation was far more terrifying than anyone could have anticipated. During the trial, details about the bizarre life Mindi led emerged in full. Friends, family, and colleagues described her as someone vibrant and full of life, but also someone who had been drawn into a dangerous dynamic. The court heard testimony about manipulation, threats, and coercion. The prosecution painted a vivid picture of the events leading up to the murder, demonstrating that this was a case not just of physical violence but of psychological captivity and abuse. The public was captivated by the strange and tragic circumstances. Media coverage emphasized the bizarre combination of secrets, and lies that defined Mindy's life. People were shocked to learn how someone so intelligent and socially aware could be ensnared in such a deadly situation. Experts weighed in on the psychological manipulation involved, highlighting how control and obsession can lead to catastrophic outcomes when unchecked. As the trial progressed, the complexity of the case became apparent. The defense attempted to argue that the suspect acted impulsively, but evidence suggested otherwise. Surveillance, digital records, and witness statements all pointed to premeditation and a disturbing level of planning. The court was forced to confront the reality that the murder was not an isolated incident, but the culmination of months of control, manipulation, and escalating danger. One of the most haunting parts of the story is the impact on Mindy's loved ones. Her family struggled to understand the complex web of lies that had formed around her. Friends wrestled with guilt for not recognizing the warning signs sooner. The community was left questioning how a young woman with so much promise could meet such a horrific end. These lingering questions added to the public fascination with the case, creating a narrative that was both tragic and compelling. In the end, the trial concluded with a conviction. The evidence was overwhelming, and the life of control, obsession, and lies surrounding Mindi Kassotis was laid bare for all to see. The sentence reflected the severity of the crime and the premeditated nature of the act, yet even after justice was served, the story remained a cautionary tale about the dangers of manipulation, the fragility of trust, and the hidden darkness that can exist in seemingly ordinary relationships. The murder of Mindi Kassotis continues to resonate in the public imagination. True crime enthusiasts, psychologists, and journalists analyze the case to understand the interplay between obsession and murder. Documentaries and articles explore the strange, twisted life she led, keeping her story alive as both a tragedy and a warning. The case highlights the importance of awareness, vigilance, and intervention when someone may be trapped in a dangerous situation. Even now, the story of Mindi Kassotis sparks discussion. How can someone be so intelligent, socially aware, and seemingly in control of their life yet fall victim to such manipulation? How can communities recognize warning signs and intervene before tragedy strikes? These questions linger, demonstrating that this is not just a story about murder, but about human psychology, social dynamics, and the hidden dangers that exist in everyday life. And as we reflect on this story, one question remains haunting: how many other lives are hidden behind facades of normalcy, caught in dangerous dynamics that escalate in silence? The strange and tragic life of Mindi Kassotis is not only a cautionary tale but a chilling invitation to look more closely at the people around us, to recognize the hidden struggles, and to intervene before secrets turn deadly. The murder of Mindi Kassotis is remembered not just for the crime itself but for the bizarre, secret-filled life that led up to it. It is a case that reminds us of the dangers of obsession, the fragility of trust, and the unpredictability of human behavior. It is a true crime story that continues to captivate, horrify, and educate, leaving a lasting impression on anyone who studies it closely.